Welcome back to the final afternoon session of our first subcommittee meetings. This is the afternoon of day 3. Before, Kim, you had asked a question about what we're doing in FSA to kind of like ramp up and like for prison education programs and different things FSA is doing in terms of FAFSA completion. So what I wanted to do is turn it over to my colleague David Musser in FSA to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I thought it would be helpful just to give a series of things that the department and FSA are doing to make the process for applying for Title IV aid and maintaining Title IV aid eligibility easier for incarcerated individuals. So I'll go through the things that we're working on, and if you guys have any questions or any other suggestions, we'd certainly be open to hearing those. So the first one I wanted to mention is that, as many of you know, Congress eliminated the selective service and drug conviction limitations on Title IV eligibility. FSA has already implemented a change in eligibility requirements for the current award year, but we're also going to be removing that question from the FAFSA in the 2023-24 award year. So hopefully that will cut down on the number of individuals who decide not to complete the FAFSA because they think that could affect their eligibility. We hope that makes a positive impact for them. We're also collaborating, and we talked about this in an earlier session, we're collaborating with other department staff to determine ways to make it easier for incarcerated students to get out of default or overpayment on Title IV grants in order to regain Title IV eligibility when that happens. And that could include a variety of things, for all the way from just how they get out of default in the first place to the specific servicing requirements for when they contact a servicer about something like this. We're also proposing, as part of this process, to restore a student's lifetime eligibility if they cease, if their school ceases offering programs in the student's facility, and FSA is working on the details for how that would work. We are also working to establish a process to identify incarcerated students as part of the application process so that we can account for their special circumstances, and that could potentially include different requirements for completion of verification, something the department is working on right now. Then finally, I wanted to mention we're also thinking about some more minor changes. We've heard from various folks that there are occasions where incarcerated students can't receive paper student aid reports because it's on colored paper. It's easier for them to receive it on white paper. So we're working on trying to ensure that once we've identified someone as incarcerated, that we send them some of their report on white paper to help improve the chances of it reaching them if they don't have internet access. There's also some little things in terms of what we require for completion of paper FAFSAs. We traditionally have required the use of black ink. We plan to relax those requirements because sometimes facilities have specific requirements for the use of different kinds of ink in their facility that may not be black. So we want to be sure that that's not an impediment. And then lastly, longer term, we're considering other changes that might make it easier for incarcerated students. We have to acknowledge that for now, we think that paper FAFSAs are still the likeliest method for incarcerated students to use to apply for the FAFSA. We recognize that can be a cumbersome process, and we also recognize that financial aid administrators often have to assist in that process pretty substantially. So we're considering ways that we could also streamline that process and make it easier for students to complete a version of the electronic process if they don't have internet access, or some other way for financial aid administrators to help them and reduce the burden on the students. So that's the list of things that I have. I want to open it up to the group if you guys have questions about any of those or anything else that I can help explain on that front.
Kim.
Thank you, David, for addressing all of those and letting us know. I'm sure there's a lot of feedback the Second Chance Pell's financial aid administrators could provide. So I will let NASPA know that we are willing to provide feedback to them if they want to be our go-between. I know we use that quite a bit. So What about specifically with dependent students? I know you touched on the verification and just the dependency requirements. I don't know the status of a student who is incarcerated, if they are considered, ward of the state or things like that. I don't know what that language looks like and if it can be extended to incarcerated individuals.
That's an area that we have not yet found a way to address. Currently, if an individual does not meet one of the dependency requirements to be considered an independent student, they'd still be considered a dependent student and may have to obtain their family's financial information to complete the FAFSA. So we're still thinking about that one, and we know that one's challenging, but it's something I'll have to take back and talk over with my FSA colleagues and my department colleagues to see if there's any way that we can overcome that particular hurdle. We know that is challenging, that getting that documentation from outside sources is one of the biggest hurdles that incarcerated individuals face with their applications. So it's something I'm happy to take back.
Stan?
I just wanted to thank you, David, for that and for the information you provided and for what FSA is doing for incarcerated students and just understanding the situation so well as you do. I would also want to know a little bit more about students who are in default and how, what your view, what are you doing in that range? Because there are a number of incarcerated students who have defaulted and thus need that addressed.
So I can't comment on exactly what our approach is going to be because I think the department still has to make a final decision about how we're going to move forward with it. But I can tell you what we've heard from incarcerated individuals and other advocate groups that we are trying to address. And it's mainly the fact that incarcerated individuals it's really challenging for them to make the number of on-time payments that they need to make in order to get into a rehabilitated status. And so what we're looking at now there are a few other ways that individuals can get back into an in repayment status. And what we're thinking about are ways that we could adapt those for incarcerated students. So again, without going too much further down that road, I just want to say that's kind of the direction that we've been considering. And we also are considering ways that we can help improve the process for sort of seeking seeking assistance to get out of default, recognizing that getting on the phone with the servicer is often the traditional way of doing that, and that's also very challenging for incarcerated individuals. So that's another thing that we're trying to figure out how, and amid some of the other things that we're working on in servicing, how we can help address that and make that process a little easier.
Stan? And then Kim.
Thank you again, David. I would also just we work, my organization works closely with individuals that fall into that category, and we help them in that particular regard. I would love to have conversations. I mean, you mentioned that, you're figuring these solutions out by talking to incarcerated students and advocacy groups for them. I would love to have a conversation and be involved in those be involved in that thinking process of how to address that as we work with a lot of students in that position.
Sure, I'd be glad to hear your suggestions, and we could talk about that offline.
Kim?
I would also share that I encourage financial aid administrators that are listening in to make that part of your onboarding process. Once we know what the department is going to require of those individuals, to be the go-between to help them connect with those servicers or whatever that ends up being. That's just going to be part of making them successful. That's just part of something that they should be looking at helping with.
And I also just want to say thanks for your suggestions on this, Kim. And if your schools or NASFA have suggestions, we're also very interested in those from the school perspective as well.
Thank you, David.
Oh, sorry, Marissa?
I think just to piggyback off Kim, I think it would be so important in the correctional facilities too, that we have all the appropriate information for our individuals that are going to be in this program. So thank you for those ideas.
Sure. Thanks, everyone.
I see no other hands.
Thank you for that, David. Let's launch into the last discussion on the regulations, and that will be about we're still in the best interest determination, but we'll be talking about the remaining indicators. So Vanessa, would you mind projecting the amendatory language, please? Thank you. Yep, right there is perfect. So we have 3 remaining indicators, and we suggest defining the inputs as serving the best interest of students when they provide the same level of services to students who are incarcerated as to those who are not. So I think we can kind of take all of them as one, and while they're distinctly different, what we've added to the statutory language is essentially similar. And so for E, we see whether the experience, credentials, and rates of turnover or departure of instructors for a prison education program. That's kind of where the law cuts. That is where the law cuts off. We've added is the same or similar to the experience, credentials, and rates of turnover or departure of instructors for non-prison education, non-prison education programs offered by the institution. And we've added similar language about the transferability of credits, and also whether the institution offers relevant academic and career services to participating confined or incarcerated individuals while they're incarcerated in advance of reentry or upon release. And so you see we've added similar language to all 3 of those indicators. And Vanessa, if you could just scroll down, I wanted to just remind folks, I'll tell you when to stop. Keep going. Let's see. Let's see, you can keep going. Let's stop right there. So I just want to remind folks that about the accreditation piece. If you see number 10, Romanet 3, reviewed and approved the methodology for how the Bureau of Prisons or State Departments of Corrections or other entity made the determination under E through G. That's what we're talking about, to ensure that the prison education program meets the same standards as the same or substantially similar programs that are not prison education programs at the institution. We do have Elizabeth Daggett from the accreditation group here with us again today until 2 p.m. And so she will also be able to provide insight on how on the role of the accreditor in this as well. So Vanessa, if you wouldn't mind scrolling back up so folks could see the best interest piece again, and I will stop there and open it up for conversation.
Belinda.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I think that these 3 standards are really important. I think that they align very well with what we expect on the accreditation side of things with our traditional, classrooms for students. And I feel that, people who are incarcerated and undertaking, university or college programs deserve the same or as close to the same, standards, quality that they would expect if they were a traditional student. So I think that these 3 points are very good guardrails for everyone in this space, and I think it helps protect students. So thank you for having this language there.
Marissa.
I would agree with Belinda. I think these are so important and very much needed in here. So thank you.
Stan?
I would also agree that these are very, very needed to gauge quality. I do have, concern or question as to what is in mind with turnover. As a lot of times prison education programs are hiring, you know, professors or instructors that don't hold tenure track positions or regular positions at the institution, and they're brought in to teach a special course, as you know, they're seeking, for instance, to make the curriculum a little more culturally sensitive and responsive to the population it's being delivered to. So in that regard, sometimes the turnover is slightly different than the on-campus program, and you know, just to have that in mind, and for us to think about here that difference between the uh, prison education program and the non-prison education programs at an institution.
Aaron.
Stan, is there any language, or if you could think of any language, before the second session that we could add to account for circumstances like that? That would be really helpful for the department.
Yeah, I can certainly do that and get that back. I mean, to something without thinking of the exact language, but to what the metric of same or similar is, the similar part gives room for, interpretation. So I think this may be the place for the dear colleague type letters where that is explained there, for instance, and it's really the interpretation that needs that understanding of what I mentioned.
Aaron?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to follow up with. We say same or substantially similar, and I would, for any of the subcommittee members that are either based at a post-secondary institution or have experience at a post-secondary institution, if you have any thoughts on the same or substantially similar language in there, I think that what Stan just said is, an idea could be to, we anticipate probably getting questions on that. So maybe we could further expand on that in a dear colleague letter, sub-regulatory guidance, preamble language, or do you all think that more regulatory language needs to be added here to further describe same or substantially similar?
Kim?
Thank you. I think one of the things we need to take into consideration, and I'm not sure how we would write the language for it, but one of the hurdles that we ran into when we were trying to establish our educational program in our first program in the Second Chance Pell was the institution we were working with had very large restrictions as far as types of ways that incarcerated individuals could communicate with us, whether it be if it was seated or online. We had to follow certain protocols with the online connections that we had. It wasn't normal internet connections. Certain tablets had to be used. I can see that being varied from correctional facility to correctional facility. One of the barriers was when we talk about similar instruction, when you have an online class or a seated class, you have the ability to talk amongst yourselves as students in discussion boards or in class settings. Some correctional facilities forbid that discussion board type of environment. So how do we write that in there that institutions may seek to make it as similar as possible to the ones that they have on their campus, but or online, but may have restrictions pushed at them from the correctional facility?
I see no other hands. Oh, wait, sorry, Stan just went up.
I just wanted to add to what Kim and say that, that certainly is something to consider. And as an example, a science course, may a lab component of a science course may have things that cause issues to get into the correctional facility. Thus, the same or similar becomes a little more challenging. To the turnover point that I had mentioned earlier, is it possible to think about, instead of turnover of faculty, to be thinking of that the credentials of the faculty are same or similar, even if there are different faculty in it? So maybe something to consider in the language.
Aaron?
Yeah, these are all great ideas and things that the department can take back and discuss further and think through ways to either amend the language that we presented here, or think of ways in the future that we can provide clarity. Again, whether that's in regulation or through sub-regulatory guidance. I want to make sure we have enough. I want to make sure everybody has been able to provide their thoughts on each of them. I know Stan talked specifically about the teacher experience, credential, and turnover. Any thoughts on the transferability of credit for courses available to confined or incarcerated students? Vanessa, if you can scroll down just a bit. I think one of the paragraphs, if anybody sees it, stop me. Keep scrolling, Vanessa, please. Oh, there it goes. Oh, you stopped there. Number 5, we say offers transferability of credit to at least one institution of higher education in the state in which the correctional facility is located, or in the case of a federal correctional facility, in the state in which most of the individuals confined or incarcerated in such facility will reside. And that was taken directly from the statute. And so while the Bureau of Prisons takes this into consideration in their determination, that this is the actual statutory framework for what is at least required. And then we're saying for the Bureau of Prisons determination, we want to have at least similar, or the same or substantially similar offerings. So any more ideas on that? I was just trying to point out the statute kind of talks about, and the regs talk about transferability of credit in 2 places. So any more ideas on transferability of credit? You can scroll back up, Vanessa, I'm sorry, to the best interest piece. Thank you.
Belinda?
Thank you. I'll just reiterate, but make it more specific to this particular one. This is a really important, this is a really important guardrail. I think it will protect students against, potentially bad actors coming in with kind of junk credits or, things like that. So I think it kind of puts everyone on notice that, these really need, that educational institutions cannot work in a vacuum, and that they must have these transferability. So I think, again, this is just a really good guardrail that protects students, because, oftentimes they move, both while incarcerated and then just the general public on the outside. So I think this is really valuable that this protection, this guardrail is put in for students so that they do have that, because oftentimes we've seen, with other situations where students have had to come en masse to the government to help them out because their credits weren't able to be transferred. So I appreciate Ed putting this in. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands.
And then for the last one, offering relevant academic and career services. Are there any ideas on language here, or even if you have ideas about what should be in in sub-regulatory guidance, if we release that to explain this further? Any of your thoughts or ideas would be welcomed.
I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, well, with that, I think what we can do in the time remaining is move into temperature checks. I will say I'm not an expert at temperature checks, and we have
2 comments, Belinda and then Stan.
Quick question. Thank you very much. We had discussed recidivism and Ed's desire to get a definition on that. During the break, a lot of us had a chance to, talk and look at stuff. And I was curious, do we have space now before we do the temperature checks to visit that? I don't want to derail us if we're going in this direction, but I just wanted to check on that because, and then also there was another issue about some concerns about the 2-year part of things. And, I've talked with constituents and colleagues on the subcommittee, and I just wanted to check whether or not there might be an opportunity to say something briefly about that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Stan?
let's do it. Oh, sorry, Sophia.
I was gonna actually mention the same thing and propose some ideas around recidivism and the 2-year piece as well. And so what a lot of there's a lot of different, as Dr. McTeer was mentioning, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and I think that's where his questioning came. One of the more commonly used ways of the definition is it's reincarceration within 3 years as a result of a new conviction or a technical violation. But what is being more commonly used amongst groups like myself that I represent is removing that technical violation piece and just saying reincarceration within 3 years due to a new felony conviction. The technical violation piece is very problematic in that, there are individuals that, being a formerly incarcerated person myself, I can, I had good POs, I had some parole officers that were very excited about me being back in school, for instance, and working on my doctorate degree. And then I had some parole officers that were not very excited about that particular aspect of who I was, and that, made things a little bit more challenging for me. So, if we were to go off of technical violations alone, sometimes people just get the, luck of the draw, get a parole officer that is, not working in their best interest per se, and they get a, technical violation. So I would propose not to use reincarcerations due to technical violations, and simply add it as reincarceration due to a new felony conviction. And I also just wanted to add, I don't think my question about the requiring recidivism as being used as the quality of the program wasn't really addressed. And I know, I intend to send some language suggestions, but it wasn't really responded to on the what your all's thoughts were on not using recidivism as a metric for quality, but but tracking it, but not using it as a metric of quality of the program.
Aaron?
Stan, I don't think a decision has been made there. That we wanted to get the thoughts of the subcommittee. I think almost everyone that has spoken has said it should not be, and considered in the quality of the program of the subcommittee members. And we will certainly take that back and discuss it. But it was clear that the subcommittee in general did not think that that would be a good indicator of quality of a program.
Belinda?
Thank you. If we are able to chime in about the definition, I just wanted to say that I agree with Stanley. I think that the language should read that it is only for a new conviction, a new felony conviction, rather, so that whole idea of the technical is removed. Stanley did make a comment about like a 3-year thing. I was unaware of that. I just want to reiterate what I'd said earlier about that time frame of actually tracking recidivism. I think that the maybe going like that 5 to 7 might be more beneficial. So that might be an opportunity, perhaps, that would not cause harm against the people that we're trying to help here. So if that is technically something on the table too, if a time frame does need to be, looked at, I wonder if that 5 to 7 again to give people the space to fully integrate and things of that nature. But definitely removing that technical violation. I think it must be a new felony conviction. Thank you.
I see no other hands.
Belinda, I think you said you wanted to talk about one more thing outside of recidivism.
Yeah, I was actually just going to raise my hand and ask if that's okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. So there was some concerns about I forget what number it was. It's about that 2 year for a program and it being kind of evaluated. I wanted to put an idea forward for Ed's consideration, and it parallels what goes on in a lot of different spaces now. If an educational institution is told by their accreditation agency that they are in violation. So I just use that as a kind of base point there, that there's usually an appeal process that is available to an institution, to try to, show cause and, show, look, that we're actually really doing things incorrectly and we're asking for a second glance. I wonder whether or not it would be important for Ed to consider to have a process in place for colleges to appeal a decision that DOC might make about their program not operating in the best interest of students. It seems good for the appeal to be made to the Department of Education to kind of be a status check onto whether or not that college program meets that quality standard. So I wonder whether or not that kind of, since we do seem to have a little bit of latitude on how this language is written, that, if there is indeed a case where it looks like an educational institution may not be serving the best interests as based by, corrections or that other entity that's listed in the statutory language, whether or not there could be a possible appeal process there. I just put that for the department's consideration. Thank you.
Aaron?
Thank you. And I think that I had mentioned earlier that we will be talking about, standards, consequences, and appeals in the next session. And I think that we'll probably devote a lot of time to those areas.
I see no other hands.
Okay, so I think it's time to move into temperature checks. I'm gonna need Amy's help with this. Amy, is everybody on? I can only see, and I can't see everybody to do the thumbs up, thumbs down. So sideways thumbs. So maybe Sophia, can you see everybody, or?
Could everyone turn on their video?
Just the subcommittee members.
Yes, just the subcommittee. Sorry.
It might take us a few times to get this right, but and if thumbs don't work, then we can do people can just raise their hands if they have issues with the language as proposed, because I can't see everybody on the screen from my view, but I know we do have Dr. Paccioni on the line. I believe Dr. McTier we resolved his technical issues, Amy?
Yes, we have everyone who should be here.
Okay. I think the only person we don't have today is Terrell, who told us he wouldn't be here. So Vanessa, would you mind scrolling all the way up to the top of the document? Thank you. So, yeah, I can't see everybody. So so we'll do it this way. You can, Sophia?
I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Subcommittee.
And then I think this is Ron also on here. Yeah. So yes, I see 6 subcommittee members.
Okay, great. So I'll rely on you to tell us if there's any thumbs down, and then if there's a thumbs down, then we can, then that individual, Sophia, can you call on that individual and we can find
Absolutely.
but the, and and before we start, I want to say, it would be helpful for the department if you're a thumbs down to provide either actual language that we can consider, or if you don't have language, just a general concept. You know, if you don't like a regulation, and if we get like I don't like it, it would be difficult for us to, I guess, go back and a proposed regulation. It would be difficult for us to go back and draft language around that or try and come to some compromise. So if you could provide like a framework on what you would like to see going forward in session 2, that would be really, really helpful. So let's,
Belinda.
Sorry, just a clarifying question, because this is the first time I've gone through this process. If, for example, I was to do a thumbs up or a sideways, I just want to be clear, do I still have the opportunity to potentially provide some additional or a different language after this temperature check has, because a lot of my stuff might be this right now, but I am planning, with the committee and the constituents to provide some other language. So I just want to make sure that if I'm doing this or this, that I'm not locking myself out from offering Ed more language with regards to this. I just wanted to clarify that, please.
That's absolutely correct. And Belinda, keep in mind that this is the subcommittee as well. So, this is the recommendation to the main committee. So it's, we're really not locking anything. The main committee is the real is the entity that kind of locks it in for consensus or no consensus, hopefully consensus. But so yeah. So if you're saying that you like the language, you can still say, hey, I thought about it a little more, and I do want to add something. If you're not really sure right now, and you can do the sideways if you're okay with the language, and then if you just totally disagree, or then you can do the thumbs down, and then and hopefully with anybody who does a thumbs down, you can just briefly tell us why. Okay. So
And just a reminder to put the thumbs close to the face so that we can actually see them.
All right, you ready? This is my first time doing a consensus check, so I'm getting a message. I'm sorry. 1 second, everybody. I just want to make sure that I'm doing this correct. Yeah, so this is just a status check of where we are. We don't want to diminish the subcommittee's role, and we do want your feedback. We have another full session next month, and we will continue all these conversations. So I hope that was clear in what I said, and in that reiterated in the guidance that I just received. So for 600.2, the definition of an additional location. What is the subcommittee feeling? And this was adding the that you have to an additional location would be any of these facilities, even if the instruction was through correspondence or distance education. Do we have a thumb? Do you want to do your thumbs, or okay, Sophia's got a.
Okay, I can't see Marissa's. Okay, got you, Marissa. Yeah, there's no thumbs down.
Okay, all right. Additional location. Okay, so let's move on to the confined or incarcerated individual. This was about mirroring the definition and regulation to the statute.
I'm sorry, Aaron. Dr. McTier had a hand raised.
Just for clarity purposes, we're also including the side notes that you've placed in the document, am I correct, as a part of what we're gauging temperature checks for, or is it just the regular text?
For now, let's just do the regular text, because if you are not, and if you do a thumbs down because we haven't, your Dr. McTier, your thumbs down could be because right now, that language is not included in there. We haven't had a chance to go back to talk to our colleagues and leaders about adding this or adding these pieces. So that would be a point where you could just do thumbs down and then state why.
Gotcha. But then on my other one, I would put my finger as sideways, the first one.
Okay, thank you. So how about a temperature check on confined or incarcerated individual? The definition mirroring that to statute, and also including juvenile justice facility in the definition.
Okay, there are 2 thumbs down, and I guess we'll start with, who should we start with?
It's up to you, Sophia.
Okay,
I'll
let's
let
go
you
with Stan first and then go to Belinda.
Sorry, I just acknowledging the comments, the additions by Terrell and Dr. McTeer that are in the sidebar there.
That's the same for me. I just want the acknowledgement of those bubbles. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can move down to 600.7. This is, Vanessa, if you can scroll down to like, I guess the first, there's a lot of red in there, but just scroll down to the first piece of red. Yep. Okay, so we'll just take a temperature check on the whole 600.7 as a whole. This is codifying the process by which the department will not grant the waiver to exceed 25% of students. If an institution has more than 25% of their regularly enrolled students that are incarcerated, they can apply to the department for a waiver, and these are the conditions for which the department will not approve a waiver or grant a waiver. And it also discusses, if you could scroll down a little bit, Vanessa, it also discusses if the waiver is approved, then the circumstances under which we can withdraw the waiver and the and then how the institution would go about winding down if the waiver is withdrawn. So can I see thumb? Or Sophia?
I'm still waiting. Okay, there are no thumbs down at this point.
Okay. Can we go to 600.10, Vanessa? Okay, so we didn't specifically talk about 600.10 like just on this paper, but we did talk about it when we talked about the application that the school would make to the Department of Education under 668.8. So essentially here, we're just codifying in regulation that the department's proposal that the first eligible prison, the department, the secretary must approve the first prison education program at the first 2 additional locations. So that's what we're adding. We talked about that under the definition of 668.8, but we're proposing that the secretary approve the first prison education program at the first 2 additional locations. Sophia, do we have a hand up?
I don't see any thumbs yet.
I didn't know if we had a hand
Also,
up, but
okay.
but
I know Dave has his hand up. So are we doing? Let's do the thumbs first, and then we can go to Dave.
Sorry, Sophia, real quick. This was an explanation for why there's some text in here that people probably won't understand because we haven't really talked about it and it's unrelated. If you see C1 Romanet 3 there, that's actually a technical change from a completely different part of the regulations that is going to happen regardless of what we do here. So you can ignore that. I think what you're giving thumbs for are the provisions elsewhere, specifically in C1 Romanet 2. Sorry about that. Sorry for jumping in there.
That's okay. So let's go ahead and do the thumbs now. We can look at them now then. Okay, and no thumbs down.
Thank you, Sophia. Vanessa, can we go to 600.21? This is in regard to reporting additional locations to the department. So this is, it's just updating application information. So updating your participation agreement with the department to inform us within 10 days of the change that that you've added another eligible prison education program. We're not voting on Belinda's edit. Belinda's edit was the establishment of an eligible an eligible prison education program at an additional location as defined under 600.2. We are not voting on that. We are voting on the language as is there. So if you're thumbs down, you can explain why. So show us your thumbs.
Okay, we have one thumb down, two. I can't see Angie and I cannot see Dr. McTeer. Okay, I have one thumbs down, and that is from Kim.
Okay. Kim, can
Just
you
clarifying that Belinda's thing there. Otherwise, it'd be good.
Thank you. I'm just writing as fast as I can. All right. Vanessa, can we go to 668.8? We're going to, you know what, let's take this as a whole. Let's take it as a whole. I know that there's a lot in there, but if you're a thumbs down, then you can just point out the section that you'll let us know what section you're a thumbs down for. This is the definition of a prison education program, and then we can ask Vanessa to scroll to the area that you want to discuss. So
Okay.
if you're, so Sophia will let us know what order we should go in, and then.
We do have Stanley asking a question, I believe.
Okay.
I think it's a lot to, I mean, I'm a thumbs down, and I think it's a lot to go through, and I think we should try it at least, couple sections at a time, or, but not all as a whole.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, Vanessa, if you could scroll back up to the top. So in paragraph N, we've just provided that, we've just added to the regulation that the department considers a prison education program as an eligible program.
I mean, even if we just do what can be captured on the screen, that way we could at least be refreshed of what we're discussing, and we can do a couple at a time in that way.
I guess what's captured on the screen is like some of them, sometimes we'll jump from like, or it might not, the whole entire thought in the regulation might not be captured on the screen. Like, let's say you just see half of like what we're proposing for accreditation, or half of what we're proposing for, I don't know, the department's approval. I think, Stan, you had offered, let's go section by section. So I think maybe hopefully we can just do that. Okay. All right. So how about N? This is a technical change. I would consider a technical change. We're essentially saying that, it is an eligible, prison education program is an eligible program.
I have no thumbs down.
Okay. All right. Let's start with O1. O1 is a statutory change that is saying that only public nonprofit or vocational institutions are eligible to provide a prison education program. That is in the law, so we would see that as technical. Thumbs?
I have no thumbs down.
Okay. Vanessa, could you scroll down a little bit? Thank you. O2 is also directly from statute. The institution has to be approved by the BOP, DOC, or other entity to operate in the correctional facility. The post-secondary institution has to be approved to operate in the correctional facility. This is a statutory. This is directly from the statute. No changes were made.
I have no thumbs down.
Okay. 03. This was essentially out of the statute, but this is where this is essentially where we're saying that after 2 years of approval by the BOP or DOC, the post-secondary, the Bureau of Prisons would then have to begin evaluating programs or determining programs are in the best interest of student based on the definition that we're going to create here.
Stan had a hand up. I'm not sure if you have a question, Stan.
Yes, I actually am a thumbs down for the one before. Actually,
Stan, can you explain why?
I think this is where I would like to propose the idea that there is a collective of stakeholders involved. If I'm recalling correctly.
Mhm. I believe that was the next one. I put Dr. McTier in Stan's comments. If you see the next paragraph 3I, I put your comment there.
Okay.
And that's just highlighting it. I'm getting some feedback. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Let's just vote on 3 altogether, as opposed to voting on 3I2. So essentially, we're saying after. So let's just vote on all of 3. So after 2 years of approval so that essentially we're saying we will give them 2 years of approval initially, and then after that, the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Corrections would have to apply our definition as we define it through the subcommittee to the program's continued approval to this institution's continued approval to operate a program operate a prison education program at a correctional facility.
I have 2 thumbs down so far. 2 thumbs down.
Okay.
Let's start with Stan and then go to Dr. McTier. Stan? Yeah, I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm trying to read through what's on the screen as well as looking at the document in another view. So I'm in big thumbs down because what Dr. McTier and I mentioned in the sidebar there. And I mean, looking back through it, I'm also a thumbs down for number 2, because for the similar reason. It is number 2 is saying that it is the correction. I'm against the Department of Corrections being the gatekeeper to these programs. And that is what number 2 is saying, correct? And am I reading that correctly?
Yes, Dan. That's you're reading it correctly. That is.
And I am a thumbs down for that. I think, I think that the collective of stakeholders should be involved at that approval stage, that gatekeeping stage.
Mm-hmm. I just I just want to reiterate that there is weigh-in from the Department of Education. There's weigh-in from the accreditor. There's also weigh-in from the state. The Bureau of Prisons is not the only entity that will have a say in whether a program can operate, or whether a prison education program can be established at a correctional facility.
So Yes, so the secretary has the ability to say it won't happen. The accreditor has the ability to say it won't happen. And the Department of Corrections has an ability to say that it won't happen. So and what I'm suggesting is that the Department of, particularly for the Department of Correction piece, that there be uh, a collection of stakeholders that advises the Department of Correction. So, the way I'm looking at it is the Secretary of Education has a pretty good handle on education. The accrediting institutions and agencies that accredit education programs have a pretty good handle on education. Department of Corrections do not have a handle. It is not their job to have a handle on education. So for that reason, I think that there should be a collective of stakeholders that is helping to advise the Department of Corrections in that decision process.
And should we go to Dr. McTier, or do you want to respond, Aaron?
No, let's go to Dr. Matier, please.
Okay. Dr. McTier.
I echo all the sentiments of Stanley Andrees. Not a fan of the lack of students, formerly incarcerated students at the table. Surprised that, the individual applying to establish this program is not at the table. I do think that they should also have a voice to explain or further articulate as to why they want to establish the program beyond just the application phase, right? So I just think there needs to be key stakeholders and a representative from each constituency group at the table. As it relates to 2, I am not a fan of the recidivism rates being added on. I just think some of these metrics are not, I think some of these metrics are problematic. I've stated that throughout this subcommittee. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I understand that they're statutory, but just because they're statutory doesn't mean that I agree with them. I think there's just too many nuances that exist. I don't think the Department of Education understands what it's like to be incarcerated and then released from a prison facility. And I don't think that there's a lot of expertise from the Department of the Education side on what actually needs to be looked at. I just feel like they completely missed the mark in this particular area. So my thumb is down. I don't support it.
Stan?
Yeah, so just to mention again that my thumb is down for both 2 and 3, and to touch on 2 again, and then also to comment on why it's down for 3 is, I think we can still leave it as is and add in that stakeholder piece where it's still the Department of Correction. They're just being advised. I mean, when I had brought up, I had asked Aaron, like, what was the envision of how these new programs will be started, and who is it, the education institution that approaches the DOC, or is it a DOC that approaches the education institution? I think thinking about that is important. In most cases, I mean, I don't know, but I know for the most part of my experiences and knowing a lot about the different programs that are already in place, it wasn't the DOC that approached an education institution. It's an education institution that ended up approaching a DOC for a partnership. And the DOC generally is like, I don't know too much about this. Like, please, so there's multiple relationship building meetings around just getting the DOC to understand what, how a prison education program runs. If it is included in there that there's already a body, an entity, an advising group of stakeholders present for the DOC to rely on, then the DOC can lean on that, since the DOC is not, it is not their responsibility to know all there is to know about education, but they could rely on this advisory committee of individual stakeholders and such to help them in making that decision.
Aaron?
Thank you, Stan. I wanted to circle back to Dr. Mutier. Are you now a thumbs down for paragraph 2? I just wanted to make sure I kept the tally, because you said that you agree with Stan.
I'm sorry, I was Roman numeral 2.
Oh, no, like the number 2. Vanessa, can you highlight that? Yeah.
It's under 3. Are we talking about 3?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying because Stan had went back and said he's now a thumbs down for number 2. Originally, he was not, and then you said you agree with everything Stan said about the Bureau of Prisons and not and wanting to work collaboratively or in partnership with other key stakeholders. I want to also say guests have the ability to raise their hands, but they will not have the ability to speak. And so if you're watching from the public, while you do have the ability to raise your hand, consequently, you don't have the ability to speak. I think I just saw a hand raised from the public. But I just wanted to ensure, Dr. McTeer, that you were
my thumb is down definitely for 2, because I do want that partnership piece added into that. And then for 3, Roman numeral 1 and 2, and then all those A, B, C, D, I'm definitely down.
Okay. A, B, C, D. So you're talking about you're referring to you're down the outcomes.
Well, that's what I thought we were on. Are we on? Are we on number 3, Roman number 1 and 2?
We're on number 3 right now, and I apologize for being so confusing. But I just wanted to circle back to see what your if you were still a sideways thumbs for number 2, which you said your thumbs down, and then for number 3, you said that you were thumbs down because of the recidivism at first, and then you said I'm also thumbs down because of A, B, C, D, and
etc. I'm not a fan. My thumb is down because for 3, specifically for 3. I've already explained why I'm thumbs down for the recidivism rates and all of those things. For 2, my thumb was to the side because you did say that it was statutory, but if I could put it down, I would, with the caveat that, I do want to see that stakeholder piece added into both of these areas. But because it's a statutory requirement, my thumb is to the side with I really want to put it down. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I'd like to move to paragraph 4. Sophia will let me know. You let me know whenever we're ready.
Okay, so let's get everybody's thumbs then.
Oh, do we have a 4? I don't know. Let me see. Did we skip 4? There could be some technical issues with the numbering in the document. If you could, let's see. Go down, scroll down, so Vanessa. Yeah, I think we skipped number 4. You know what it was? If you can scroll back up, Vanessa, to the Roman numeral 4. I think that was originally the number 4, and we made it Roman numeral 4. So this was that going forward, the Bureau of Prisons will be required. We're proposing to require the Bureau of Prisons to make the determination going forward into the future 90 days before the expiration of the institution's program participation agreement. So that would essentially be about every 6 years, the Bureau of Prisons, State Departments of Corrections, based on the definition that we create here, will make that decision that the programs are operating in the best interest of students. Each institution would have different expiration dates for their program participation agreement, but essentially a program participation agreement could last up to 6 years, depending on if the institution is on provisional certification. That would be whatever the agreement was between the department and that institution. But generally for many institutions, it would be every every 6 years, the determination would need to be remade that the programs continue to operate in the best interest of students.
So are we ready to get a thumb?
Oh yeah, for sure. Please, Sophia.
Okay. Let's see the thumbs then. Okay, I got no. I see. I can't see Angie's thumb. I'm sorry, Dr. Oh, thank you. I have no thumbs down.
Okay, all right. Vanessa, can we go to 05? This is transferability of credit. This mirrors the statute. One minor technical change to update the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulation references. So we can do the temperature check, Sophia.
Okay, and I don't see any thumbs down.
06. This was 6 was essentially from statute. However, we did add clarifying language that it had to be a final accrediting action that is an adverse action. So the institution would have to have exhausted all their appeals processes, and then the final action by their creditor was to revoke accreditation. So if any of these things happen, under 6, you know, from the department's perspective, from the creditor's perspective, or the state's perspective, the post-secondary institution could not offer a prison education program. We're not taking a temperature check on Belinda's proposed addition to cross-reference to 602. So if you are a thumbs down, Belinda, if you're a thumbs down because that's not in there, you can just, you know, let us know. And
I just want to check if Kim had a question or if this was in respect to the actual check.
Question. I have a question really quick. Aaron, I believe it was yesterday, I asked about the ability for a school, an institution to continue or start in a program if they were under program review. Would that be language that we would need to put here?
you know what? Vanessa, can you put
Thank you, Aaron.
program review underneath Belinda's comments? We'll have to take that back and talk about it, but that would be Dr. Paccioni. You can put Vanessa. You can write Dr. Paccioni.
I think this was Kim, right?
Oh, was that Kim, or was that Dr. Paccioni speaking?
It was Kim. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kim. I apologize. I don't know why I thought that.
That's all right.
I apologize. Okay. So,
I'm sorry. I have another question from Stan.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it was not added in the document, my comment earlier on number 2 and the DOC being the gatekeeper. If you wouldn't mind going back, I can give you the suggested language that I would like you to put there. So, you know, even in regard to this being statutory, that the DOC needs to be in that decision-making capacity, I would like the language added with guidance from a stakeholder advisory group.
You want me to type exactly what you're saying now? Okay.
Yeah, so with guidance from a stakeholder group. With guidance from a stakeholder advisory group to include and essentially the same stakeholder groups that we've mentioned in the that Dr. McTier mentioned in the bottom, you know, just 2 comments below.
Sophia, you have any
Thank
more
you.
hands?
Okay, so let's go back down then and do the thumb check. Please remember to put the thumbs close to your face so I can see them. Okay, I have at least 2 thumbs down. I can't see Dr. McTeer and I cannot see Marissa. Dr. McTeer has a question.
Okay, we're back to what section again? I'm sorry. Okay, 6. All right.
Shall we try again? Let's try again. Let's do the thumbs again. So again, I have thumbs down from Belinda, thumbs down from Stan, and I cannot see Marissa for some reason. Oh, there you are. And I cannot see Dr. McTeer. Okay, it looks like, okay, there's things blocking them. So we have 2 thumbs down. Let's start with Belinda this time.
Yep, thank you. The only reason my thumb is down is because of those 2 bubbles. I want to make sure that those are acknowledged. I think it's really important to, for potentially that program review. That's so important with making sure that students are protected. And then just for clarity, that cross-reference. So I just want to acknowledge those bubbles. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm not sure, Dr. McTeer, did you have a question or? No, thumbs down. And the other thumb was, I lost track of it myself. There was another thumb down that was that Kim or Stan?
It was not Kim, but I would agree with my own comment there that I would want that included.
Okay.
And that's why I had it down as well.
Okay.
I heard that Dr. McTeer had his thumb down. Is that the
No,
same?
no, he had a,
Oh,
yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, Vanessa, we can move to 07. This was about the initiated adverse action. So
can we just, there's a question from Dr. Paccioni.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but is it safe to
Yes.
assume that is it safe to assume that all of the comments that were made that are going to be included, or should we be voting no, just to say we want to make sure that those comments are acknowledged? Is it safe to assume that all of the comments that were made during the sessions are going to be addressed? And it's not safe to include. Okay, all right, thank you guys.
all of the comments that were made will be addressed whether we adopt them or propose to adopt them or not. And if we propose not to adopt them, first of all, this, again, I have to go with that. This is a subcommittee recommendation, right? But we have to keep in mind the Department of Education does have a vote at the main table as well. Like Jennifer Hong can vote on this package as well. But if we come back in the next session and after discussions with leadership and colleagues, if there's rationale for why we really don't believe something should be included, that will be provided to the subcommittee. If the subcommittee chooses to push forward with the recommendation, like we want this included and this is what we want to present to the main committee, then that's up to the subcommittee. But what I can do is provide the rationale behind why the department doesn't think maybe something should be included. For example, well, I won't give an example, but we will provide rationale at least for why we don't think it should be included. Is that okay? And so that's why I want to vote on the language on the screen, because we haven't had and not the comment bubbles, because we haven't had a chance to fully discuss everything in the comment bubbles just yet.
And also we have a hand up from Stan.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify what you just said. So we are temperature checking our feeling on what's not in the comment bubbles. And then I also wanted to just clarify and add to my subcommittee members that, what we finally decide is upon us. And, for instance, Dr. McTeer's strong suggestion against recidivism, we make that decision, not Aaron, for instance, and the other Department of Ed colleagues. Am I correct on that? It is the subcommittee members that make the final piece that is brought to the full committee.
That's correct. Okay, and I think with the thumbs down, people are expressing why the thumb is down. So I mean, you know, if you're saying I don't put my thumb down because you didn't address my comment bubble, we kind of, the department knows why your thumbs down. So number 7 is the initiated adverse action piece, and that was about if there's an initiated adverse action, if the accreditor takes steps to initiate an adverse action, suspension, revocation, if Beth wants to jump in there with the other items that the accreditor can do, if they take steps to initiate an adverse action, then the institution cannot begin a prison education program. And if there are already prison education programs active at a correctional facility / additional location, then they would have to submit a teach out plan to their accreditor. So your thumbs, please.
And I cannot see Stan's or Dr. McTeer's. You can put them by your face. Okay, Dr. McTeer?
Can you repeat it? I'm sorry, I did get sidetracked.
So this paragraph was about initiated adverse actions. So if the accreditor takes steps to initiate some sort of adverse or negative action against the institution, such as terminating, suspending, or revoking the accreditation or pre-accreditation of the institution, that institution would not be able to offer a prison education program. So if they apply to the department, we got all our stuff together, we want to provide a prison education program at X correctional facility, that would be it would be denied. They couldn't do it because they had an initiated adverse action, and there's an appeal process that the institution can go through in order to resolve that initiated adverse action, and only at that point could the institution offer a prison education program. And if the institution already offers prison education programs, they would have to create a teach out plan for that prison education program in order to have a plan for it in the unfortunate event that the final accrediting action was adverse and accreditation was revoked from the institution, and therefore the students in that program can no longer receive Title IV aid.
Okay, no thumbs down then.
Okay, let's go to paragraph 8. This paragraph was directly from the statute, and this is just saying if the program leads to licensure or certification, that it would have to satisfy the applicable licensure requirement, like the applicable educational requirements in the state, if it's a correctional facility other than a federal correctional facility, and if it's a federal correctional facility in the state that most students will reside upon release. And we're not voting on the comment bubble. Kim had made the recommendation that the post-secondary institution would make that decision, but we're not voting on that comment bubble. We're just voting on the language. This was directly from the statute.
Okay, I have 1 thumbs down. That's from Kim.
Just to add the language for clarification.
Okay. Paragraph 9. This paragraph received a lot of discussion yesterday. This was about not offering education to a student if they're.
One moment. Dr. McTeer, are you voting for the thumbs down on the prior or the now? Now, okay. Go ahead, Aaron. Aaron, I think you're on mute.
It does not offer education that is designed to lead to licensure or employment for a specific job, occupation. In the state of such job or occupation typically involves prohibition on licensure or employment to a formerly incarcerated student. And then it kind of had that nuance about if it's anything other than a state a federal correctional facility in that state, or if it's a federal correctional facility in the state that most students will reside upon release. And Vanessa, if you can scroll down a little bit, the department has added, go back up just, maybe we can try and get Romanet 1 and 2 up. And the department has added a little more clarifying language to say that essentially the institution cannot enroll a student in a program if there's any state law that bans, bars, or prohibits licensure or employment based on the criminal conviction or a specific type of conviction. And then again, we have that nuance again, where if it's a state correctional facility in the state that the correctional facility is located in, or if it's a federal correctional facility, the state that most students would reside upon release, or individuals would reside upon release. So can we get a temperature check on that?
Okay, I have 3 thumbs down. Let's start with Dr. McTeer.
I just want to echo or acknowledge Terrell's comment in the bubble, but just really I want to make sure that students have the agency to decide on what type of education that they want to choose, with the expectation that the institution makes them aware of, potential barriers that may exist. But just to say that we can't offer degrees because of licensure, I don't agree with that.
Let's go to Stan and then Belinda.
Mine was exact same.
Belinda?
Thank you. This acknowledges, I just wanted to acknowledge the bubble and how important that is. And I'm already working with constituents and colleagues on the subcommittee, and will share with the subcommittee via email some new language which puts some advocacy in there for both students that want to pursue a degree that currently is limited because of a statute and requiring, educational partners to really kind of, let's see if we can provide some opportunities for students with community partners and education to actually remove some of these statutory licensure restrictions right now. So there will be some new language coming in, but also acknowledging the excellent beginnings that Stan and Dr. McTeer have said in this space. Thank you.
Kim?
Just to clarify for Belinda, I know you and I have not talked off camera, but make sure you add in there about how that connects back to placement rates. Thank you.
So, Kim, were you I'm sorry, Kim, were you a thumbs down or?
No, I was not. I was sideways.
Oh,
She had a question or a comment.
I'm sorry, Sophia, somebody had a question.
No, that was Kim. Kim had a question. That was her. She was thumbs sideways, but then she had a comment.
All
Yeah.
right.
So you're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Paragraph 10 is regarding accreditor requirements. So they'll evaluate the first prison education program at the first 2 additional locations. They will perform a site visit at those locations no later than 1 year after initiating the program. And they'll also review and improve the methodology behind the input indicators. We're not voting on Belinda's comment bubble. And if there's a down vote, then folks can explain.
I have 3, 1, 2, 3 down. Let's start with Belinda, then go to Kim, and then go to Stan.
Thank you. Yes, this is just the acknowledgement of on the bubble off to the side, and then I'm continuing to work with constituents, colleagues, as we kind of look to clarify this further and provide language to the subcommittee. Thank you.
Kim?
Just acknowledgement of Belinda's comment.
And Stan?
It's the same.
Thank you all. Paragraph 11, Vanessa. Paragraph 11 is so paragraph 11 is similar to the preceding paragraph. This is the department's approval. We are also proposing to approve the first prison education program at the first 2 additional locations. After that, the prison education programs no longer have to be approved, but they do have to comply with various parts of the Code of Federal Regulations, the 25% waiver, and some reporting things. If certain type of institutions are adding additional locations, they would have to get approval first if they're under heightened cash monitoring or provisional certification. And then also under paragraph 11 is the application process to the secretary for the first program at the first 2 additional locations. I think there's a little more. Vanessa, can you scroll down? I think there's a little more. Yeah, this is, okay. And so if the first prison education program at the first 2 additional locations is approved, Roman 3 is the process by which institutions would apply to have would report to the department subsequent programs by just letting us know that the creditor would let us know that there's no initiated, the school will let us know that there's no initiated adverse action, there's no final adverse action within the last 5 years, and also that there's, the state has not moved to revoke its licensure, its state authorization in the last 5 years. I apologize. So I'll pause there for a temperature check or questions.
And there's, I believe, a question from Kim or a comment?
Comment. Dr. McTeer, is this where on E, reentry counseling was brought up earlier, and I don't see a bubble or any comment out there. Is that needed? Or am I in the wrong section?
If I can, but Vanessa, can you scroll up to B really quickly? Oh, yeah, no,
B is E. Sorry, E is in entry.
Yes, I think this is what we were talking, well, yeah, what the conversation we had earlier this morning.
Okay. Does there need to be a bubble there to discuss? If I remember correctly, this was where we want to have more of a collaboration and not just put this on the institution or the DOC. We wanted to have third-party entities involved, much like what you and Stan are work with every day. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Stance. Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. McTeer.
yeah, my stance was that for the academic institution or the academic program that is applying for applying to establish a program, not making this like a requirement, but an option just in case, they don't have the necessary manpower or the bandwidth to carry out the reentry component. This seems like more of an expectation that they do that. And then I know a lot of educational programs establish or want to provide educational services and degrees, not the reentry component, because it's outside of their wheelhouse. So I just want to make sure that that is clear. I do think it's, I really want to go on record and say, I think it's very important that reentry services are provided by those who know what they're doing. I just don't think that educational institutions and programs have the tools to do that part.
Thank you. I was thinking this is where it was at, and sometimes you had said also that maybe on the DOC side they don't allow that connection to happen sometimes. So I guess I just want to make sure that point was brought up since I didn't see a bullet there.
And also we have a comment from Stan.
Yes, I would, we plan, as Belinda has mentioned and as I have mentioned, to provide some language, but I also think that if you can add the bulleted, or excuse me, the bubbled comment for Dr. McTier, as well as my comment to this. You know, I also said that similar to what Dr. McTier just mentioned, that reentry counseling is, I think that it should be included, and it should be, you know, community-based organizations that have expertise in providing those services.
Aaron, did you have a comment, or are we ready for the temperature check?
Yes, please, Sophia.
Okay, everybody, thumbs to faces so we can see. What you probably don't see is that your mute symbols sometimes block your thumbs. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't see Marissa's. 5 thumbs down. So let's just go from Belinda and then Kim, Dr. McTier, Stan, and Dr. Piccioni.
Thank you. It's just the acknowledgement of the bubble. Thank you very much.
Kim?
Same, thank you.
Dr. McTier?
Same.
Stan?
And I also the same as well.
Dr. Piccioni?
Same.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to 12. Thank you, Vanessa. This is, oh.
So I did have a question on that part. Is this could you remind me what part that is in? Is that the metrics part, or what section is that in, that with the reentry counseling?
So that would be under 668.8011, and that would be the application that the post-secondary institution submits to the Department of Education for the first program at the first 2 additional locations. So after you get your approval from the Bureau of Prisons, Departments of Corrections, after you get your approval from the accreditor, then, the post-secondary institution, then the post-secondary institution would then submit this information to the Department of Education. And
are you running a program already at this phase?
At this phase, you are not. You're submitting your application to start your first prison education program at your first additional location or your second
Okay,
additional.
so that's what keeps throwing me off with the additional location piece. I'm thinking of it as an additional prison education location, but it's an additional location just to the educational institution, the additional location of the prison.
Additional location to the post-secondary institution.
But it is the first prison education program for the institution.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
So and maybe we can clarify that more in the regulation as well. But we did note the five thumbs down. Okay, the 012 is the report. Instead of codifying every data element in regulation, we thought it would be best to codify it in the Federal Register, an annual Federal Register that's published by the Secretary, and that will provide the data items that we want to collect and an explanation of the process of how institutions would submit those to us.
And let's see the thumbs. Only ones I don't see is Stan's. Okay, no thumbs down. Thank you.
Okay, 013. This is the paragraph is the circumstances under which the Secretary can withdraw approval of a post-secondary institution to offer a prison education program. And we're not voting on comment bubble. We're only voting on the language on the screen. I mean, sorry, the red line language.
And let's see our thumbs. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have 3 thumbs down. Let's start with Dr. Paccioni this time, then Kim, then Belinda.
Yeah, I'll go with the comment bubble. This needs to be a teach out process.
Kim?
Absolutely with the bubble. We can't have it without that.
Belinda?
Yes, thank you. The bubble. We must have students protected, and a teach out plan will protect them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have completed the definition of a prison education program. Vanessa, can you scroll back up a little bit? It's P right there. That's perfect. Thank you. This paragraph is about winding down of eligible programs that are not prison education programs at institutions that are not federal or state penal institutions that are currently offering programming to students that are incarcerated in anything other than a federal or state penal institution or correctional facility. The statute says penal institution, but a correctional facility. So we're proposing to allow for either 6 years after July 1st, 2023, until the individual student reaches the maximum time frame for their program completion, or the individual student reaches has exhausted their Pell eligibility under the Pell eligibility rules. And then we're also proposing, Vanessa, if you can scroll down a little bit, I believe we're also proposing that for programs that do not transition for institutions that do not transition their programs, their eligible programs to prison education programs, they could not enroll new students after July 1st, 2023, because they would no longer be in compliance with the statute.
And we do have a hand up from Dr. McTeer. I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment.
Both, for clarity purposes. So you just mentioned 6 years that a student is eligible for Pell. I'm just thinking about students who are taking 1 credit or 1 course that might exceed that 6 years. So are you saying that the student their Pell Grant will end after 6 years? Is that how I'm understanding this?
Well, we're saying that the institution can continue offering the eligible program for 6 years after July 1st, 2023. I think I saw David's hand. I think I'll allow David Musser to weigh in. If that's okay, Sophia.
Of course, yes, okay.
David.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify a little bit about how that Pell Grant lifetime eligibility works in practice. Each student, when they file a FAFSA and they're determined to be eligible for a Pell Grant, is awarded what we call a scheduled award, which is essentially 100% of the student's eligibility for the year. But there are a lot of things that can reduce that eligibility. One of those is if the student is enrolled less than full time. So if they're enrolled in just 1 class, for example, they'll typically receive only 1/4 of the Pell Grant that they would otherwise have received. And so then they'll only have used 25% of their lifetime eligibility for that period, as opposed to 100%. So when you get to we do it on a percentage basis, such that when a student reaches 600%, essentially 6 full years of full awards, that's when they're cut off. So if they were less than half time, only taking 1 course, then they would only accumulate 25% every single year, which means they could go 10, 15, 20 years and before they reach that limit. So that's how that would play out in this context as well.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so should we take do you have anything else to add, Aaron, or should we go ahead with our temperature check?
The temperature check.
let us do our thumbs. Okay, Stan, which is it?
I guess I'm this way. I had some
Okay.
questions about this one, but yeah, I guess I'm.
Okay, so no thumbs down then.
Okay, let's go to 668.32. This got a lot of discussion. This is amending the student eligibility portion of the regulations to say that a student is, for eligibility purposes for a Pell Grant, the student is not incarcerated. And if the student is incarcerated, is enrolled in a eligible prison education program as we propose to define it. The department would see this as a technical change.
Shall we get our thumbs ready to go? I cannot see Stan. All right, I have 3 thumbs down. Let's start with Kim, and then we'll move to Dr. McTier and Stan.
Just acknowledging Aaron's update on the comment to match the description or definition of the definition of a student.
Dr. McTier?
Same, but just also acknowledging that the confined and incarcerated, there's a level of nuance and a level of ambiguity that exists with those as it relates to the population as a whole.
And Stan.
Same as Dr. McTier.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go to 43, Vanessa. These are the disclosures. I forgot to mention the department is open to hearing ideas. We only have 20 minutes left, but if there's proposals for more disclosures, adding more disclosures for students, we're also open to that as well. But the two disclosures we have here are relating back to the statutory language on ensuring if a program leads to licensure that it meets all the educational requirements, and also if there's any prohibitions on employment or licensure that that students are aware. So so these are the disclosures that we proposed.
I have a hand up from Dr. McTier.
So this proposal is that the higher education institution or the specific higher education program provides this information to whomever.
It's like, Belinda, do you mind if I answer, Belinda? Okay, it looks like we're saying an institution that offers a eligible prison education program, so the institution would provide this information to the student.
We have Belinda, and then we also have Kim.
Thank you. My challenge with this is the first 2 words after the Roman numeral 1, the I, upon request. I believe that the whole idea of, the population that we're trying to serve, them having to, with technical challenges, all sorts of challenges, needing to reach out to an institution to ask these questions is very difficult. So I would like to advocate, if it's possible, the removal of on request, that this material is just made available to all students and they shouldn't have to request it. Thanks.
Sophia, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. How many thumbs down do we have?
We didn't have a vote yet because we had people who were questioning or commenting before the vote. So not yet. And we have still Kim, who was in the queue to comment.
Thank you. I was thinking about this one a lot yesterday after our conversations, and I agree with Belinda that the upon request is a little daunting, not only from the student's perspective, but also from the institutional's perspective. If someone says, well, I want to know how every state reads their professional license or what's required in every state, we don't necessarily have readily available information to us. We could certainly find it, But maybe we add a bubble in here that it's in collaboration with accreditation agencies that we are allowed to gather that information, or they make that readily available to, you know, some source where we could go to gather that information easily. Thank you.
So there are 3 additional hands up. We have Dr. Paccioni, we have Dr. McTier, and we have Stan. Dr. Paccioni.
Thank you. I agree with what Belinda and Kim said. The removing the upon request and adding a bubble to this section, I think, is really critical.
Dr. McTier?
Maybe we should say the request is for those who are offering licensure programs, because I don't want to get into the point of where, say, like a program like mine, we offer liberal arts degrees and we don't offer the licensure component. Will we be required to provide that information if a student requests it? I think we should put that caveat in there that if the program is offering licensure, then that request can be made. But if not, then yeah.
Stan?
I think this was a part that I had mentioned. Again, the adding of language around a advisory group of stakeholders being created, and there being language added here. So, I mean, if we can add a bubble that says, and really what I'm referring to, and I will go back to my constituency with this and see where appropriately it can have its own bubble, or, its own language. And then that way, in parts like this, it can say refer back to this particular section where, there needs, best practices show that having this third party group or entity of stakeholder that represent, several different groups within, stakeholder groups advising on things such as this would be helpful. Then it takes, as Dr. McTier mentioned, it would be difficult for the higher education institution to make this request. But if there is this kind of advisory group that is putting out best practices, they could assist in something of this nature.
Aaron?
I heard a request for a comment bubble. I heard a few requests for comment bubbles. Because we have 12 minutes left, I have written down all of the requests, and I know we have note takers at the department. And it sounds to me, if we could take a temperature check, just I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have at least 5 thumbs down. And we'll definitely take all those ideas back, but just for time's sake, maybe asking Vanessa to add all those comment bubbles now. Maybe we still have to vote on one more thing, I think. Is that okay with you, Sophia?
Sure.
Okay. Let's move to 600.92. This one was about the credit balance issue. We consider this a technical change. If the Pell Award exceeds cost of attendance, we're required by statute to reduce it.
And shall we have our vote then? I cannot see Dr. McTier. Okay, no thumbs down.
Okay, we've gotten through it. I want to just, thank, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for all of the feedback. We will use all this information that you provided us to come back with new language, and we encourage you all to submit any language suggestions as soon as you can so we can incorporate them. The department is going to start immediately back, going back at the, trying to craft new and mandatory language for you, to discussing your changes. So the faster you can get it to us, the better. I think we meet again on, help me out, November 8th through the 10th. So if you could get it to us before then, that would be so helpful so we can incorporate it. Or if we think that it wouldn't be beneficial to incorporate the language, we could provide you with a rationale. Stan has mentioned that this is the subcommittee's recommendation. If you choose to continue to go forward with that to the main committee, that is your decision. But I think we have some hands up. We definitely have 10 more minutes, so we can keep discussing.
We have Stan as next.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up to the subcommittee the report out that will be at the November full committee meeting. So maybe take some time to talk about that before we close here.
Stan, you're taking my job. I forgot all about that. Yeah, you're making me look bad. But yeah, so I had mentioned that the report out would be in December. There will need to be a report out in November as well. But the main committee, we have to wait to see when that will be. So it might be, pretty quick turnaround for you all. But I will make sure to keep in contact with the subcommittee to let you all know when that will be. It will be like a higher level report out if the main committee does. If I go back later in, my colleagues or leaders determine that we need something in writing to the main committee for the November meeting, I'm here to assist in helping to write things. I know everybody has jobs, so this is one of my main tasks. So here at the department, so I can assist if 2 days before we find out we need a 10-page report in writing, but generally for the November session, we would like somebody to volunteer to provide an overview of what we discussed here during the subcommittee, and that date is to be determined, the length of time is to be determined, but I will absolutely keep you all apprised of when we get more concrete information.
Kim.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you all know that as a financial aid administrator, I did my best to bring issues to the table that weren't in the issue paper. And I appreciate Ed's opportunity to allow my constituencies to come together and work with NASFA to present feedback that can be thought out. I know it's been a huge concern of financial aid administrators that the same student eligibility requirements are in place for all students, and this particular group has its own challenges that we need to address and try to remove as many barriers as possible. So I don't know if David's still on here or not, but return of funds, all the changes we've seen with that, I forgot to mention that one as an issue that I hope Ed looks at, and we'll certainly be bringing that through NASFA to their attention. I don't think NASFA's minding me talking on their behalf in that way. But sometimes it's not in the students. They don't have the choice of being transferred to another institution, and we don't want that to be a negative aspect for them and stop their education. So I'll do my best. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask them. Thank you all.
And we have Stan and then Dr. McTier with comments. Stan?
So I just wanted to point out that I know, being on the full committee, several of the negotiators had mentioned wanting to bring to the full committee changing the order of the topics. So prison education came last. I know there's a number of negotiators that were interested in bringing it closer to the front for this round, so it receives more attention or time potentially than it did this past time. So I know that that's something that the negotiators, several had thought about proposing to changing the time and adding more time to it. So in that regard, it may come first, or it may come near the beginning of the week instead of at the end of the week like it did last time. Additionally, I was going to suggest that, maybe we provide the amended language as whatever it is that we come up with by that time, and then the report out be really for us to speak to the nuanced parts that there wasn't quite agreement on, and that could be a way that it is presented to the full committee.
Dr. McTier.
I agree with Stanley wholeheartedly. I do think that, you know, this is a new program that's being established, and so I think it needs the level of attention, as do student loans and whatnot. Because listen, I have my student loans, and I definitely want that addressed too. But I do think, you know, I'm here for my students and the students that I serve, and I want them to receive as much attention. So if we can get it pushed to the forefront instead of at the end of the week, because it did feel completely rushed to where we couldn't really dive deep into the necessary issues. And it seemed as if the main committee was really interested in hammering out some of these details. That's point one. Point two, or is a request, if we can get all the document with all of the bubbles and all of the text sent out to the committee members, so that way we can have it fresh on our minds. I know some of us are traveling and doing things. I'm sitting in front of my prison getting ready to go speak to my students, so I don't have my computer and I wasn't able to take notes. So it'll just be helpful to have that information. Thank you.
Aaron?
I'll send out the document with the bubbles right after this, right after we conclude.
Belinda?
Thank you. So I just wanted to double check with the subcommittee and then Aaron with regards to the reporting out and getting documents and that ready for the main committee members. I just wanted to check with the subcommittee. Is everyone comfortable with, you know, Stan and myself working on those documents to bring them back to the main committee? I know it was kind of addressed super quickly, you know, on Monday afternoon, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we hear from the subcommittee members, and, you know, I don't think it needs to be a thumb check, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that was what we'd kind of left the conversation with. And I know it was mentioned earlier this morning when we started, you know, Stanley's name and my own being offered up, but I just wanted to double check that that is, you know, full transparency and everyone is okay with that, or if there are other considerations that need to be made. Thank you.
Dr. McTier.
I'm okay with that, speaking for myself, but I will ask that if, you know, I'm sure we're all working together, but just to keep that transparency, the document that and the talking points be submitted to the group and to Aaron and the Department of Ed, so that way we're all kept abreast of what's going on. That'll be greatly appreciated.
Aaron.
Oh, yeah, we've heard your comments, and I don't know if Sophia, if you had any statements that you'd like to make, or.
I would just like to thank everybody for their participation and all the wonderful information that we've been provided with. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can look at the order of the order of topics at the main committee, and we didn't intend to rush, but we knew that the subcommittee would be discussing the details. So yeah, I think that's it. Again, thank you all. I thank you all for providing your time to the department, and I'm definitely working on behalf of, you know, students and affected students, and I think we had a really great discussion this week, and so much feedback and information to take back and process, and we're ready for round two. We have 2 minutes left. I don't want to rush anybody out the door.
We do have one comment from Stan.
Oh, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure being here with you all, and I really enjoyed the conversation, and honored to have been, you know, accepted to be at this table. Very important stuff that we are discussing here, and it's just been a pleasure being here with you all.
Agreed. I don't want to, we have 20 seconds left. We're like running down the clock. I don't want to end before 3 o'clock. I don't want to, I'm gonna get an email saying you had to go till 3. That's what we said in our guidance. So we got 5 seconds left. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful. Oh, we have one more comment.
Kim will do it.
Kim will take us out.
Aaron, I just want to say thank you for leading us down this path. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Get some rest.
Bye.